Welcome to Podcast Portugal, Voices of Portugal, Stories for the World. Today we're starting a new series of special monthly episodes focused on one of the most talked about topics for people considering a move to Portugal, the Portuguese Golden Visa. To help guide us through it, I'm joined by Jason Swan. Jason has assisted more than 600 clients with applications to the Golden Visa program, and by definition of the word, he is an expert in this field, not only in the Golden Visa itself, but also as the broader process of relocating to Portugal. Jason is actually an expat himself. He lives in the Algarve with his wife and their newborn son, so he really understands the relocation journey, not just professionally, but personally as well. Over the years, Jason has created a large amount of educational content online, helping people better understand Golden Visa, the practicalities and realities, indeed, of moving to Portugal. Today, he works closely with clients, advising them on Golden Visa in particular, as well as offering broader guidance for those considering relocation to Portugal. Podcast Portugal reached out to Jason because we see him as a trusted and experienced voice in this space. And once per month, we'll be sitting down together to answer the questions people most often ask about the Portugal Golden Visa and moving to Portugal more generally. The same questions many of you are sort of typing into Google as you start exploring the idea of life here in Portugal and indeed a gateway to Europe. If you'd like to connect with Jason directly, you can reach out through the podcastportugal.com website. I'll point you in the right direction, or you can simply click on the link in the show notes of this episode and future episodes. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. I'd like to extend a really warm welcome to Jason Swan. Jason is a Portugal-based residency and investment advisor specializing in the Golden Visa applications. We're starting a series here with Podcast Portugal because we're getting so many questions about the Golden Visa, and moving to Portugal in general is a big topic. And Jason we've managed to find a really good expert in the field to answer and address all of these questions. So I'm going to kick in and say a big welcome to Jason.
Hey, Justin. How you doing?
Yes, great. And it's finally, we've had a little break in the weather. A little break, I add, because it rained a little yesterday, and it's forecasted to rain a little bit this afternoon. So I'm feeling very British.
Yeah, well, it's freezing cold.
Yes.
It's been nothing but rain for the past few months, has it? It should be a little warmer down here in the south, but it's been literally non-stop rain, hasn't it?
It really has. But you know what? Sometimes we need it to just contrast the beautiful sun that we always get here in Portugal. Not to make anybody jealous out there. So I'm gonna fire in with my first question. I really don't know anything, apart from basic research, regarding Golden Visa and all of the different things. So hence, getting you in as an expert. And so I really want to sort of ask the first question for listeners who are completely new to this topic. What exactly is the Portugal Golden Visa?
It is effectively a VIP pass, Justin, really, to live, work, or simply retire in Portugal. Investors, it is an investment visa, and if you follow the guidelines set by the Portuguese government, as to where to invest or how to make a donation to the economy, and then you can be rewarded with the rights to reside here. And in addition to enjoying, I was going to say the sunshine, most of the time the sunshine, but you also get access to the healthcare system. You also get the option to study in Portugal as well. And there's lots up for grabs as an incentive for overseas investors to bring capital into Portugal, and it's been around now since 2012. It's responsible for a pretty big percentage of the GDP of Portugal, and it remains to be a very popular program.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the obvious things here about moving to Portugal, all the benefits, and what is often overlooked when somebody has a dream and they want to sort of move to a new place and they start doing the research is sort of, okay, how are we gonna what can we bring to the country as well as sort of taking advantage of the country, and I think this is the Golden Visa addresses some of those issues, and it, from my perspective, and I'm sure from yours also, Jason, it's a really interesting place to invest at the moment. It feels like there's a lot of energy in Portugal. There's a lot of things happening. We still have, some of the slow things that happen in government, whether that is just because it's a considered political sphere and with multiple represented parties. But I think also, they're addressing a lot of issues. They're upgrading a lot of the finances systems, and I think things are looking very positive. It's very easy to start a business in Portugal as well. They have these kind of one-stop shops you go into. And I think this the Golden Visa is a unique opportunity, and it does change over time. It has changed in the past. They sort of changed. I'm not going to say the goalposts, but they do. It takes a little bit of expertise to navigate it. Correct?
Yes, and also there's a lot of misinformation online. I find as well. Some of the questions I take in during the monthly webinar each month is it kind of shows that confusion really, and it's important. Well, I do my very best to try and clarify exactly what's going on. The program actually hasn't changed. Would you believe it, that much? But there has been some significant changes over recent years. So, yeah, we try to keep everyone as well informed. The goalposts do appear to change, but in actual facts, a lot of the time, it's really just strategist, and there's always
Mm.
proposed changes and potential changes. But if you look at the material facts of the program, they're pretty much identical now as they have been for the past few years. 2023, the program did nearly close. Again, it was talked about for kind of 10 months of 2023. We were expecting the government to finish the program, but in the end, it stayed pretty much the same. Apart from investors can no longer qualify with investing into property,
Okay.
but all the other routes still remain intact as of today's date.
Is that particularly like property in terms of buying a second home or buying a property to rent, or and is that something to do with particular zones or particular areas, or is that's just across the board? Um, they don't offer a golden visa for investing in property.
Yeah, it's across the board as
Okay.
of 2023. So there was a period of time where you could still invest into commercial property,
Mm.
and residential property was the first to go, but shortly thereafter, property was removed in its entirety. So now, the government is directing capital at the creation of jobs, at donations into the national arts, into the country's research activities. But the majority of applications are going into some form of managed investment fund or venture capital fund, again in line with the government's requirements to get the visa. So, but yeah, these things have always been around. That the main change, really the only change, is that of property coming out of that criteria.
That makes it, and that, but that doesn't rule out, I guess, sort of funds that are involved in property investment.
Well, it does affect that actually,
Oh, it
Justin. Yeah,
does.
so
Okay.
so investment funds, there's not really any restrictions on the sector that the funds invest into, but property, uh, either directly or indirectly through a fund,
Okay.
is no longer permissible
Okay.
as a reward to be rewarded with the visa.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. All right. I mean, that's and so what I'm going to play the dumbass, which I can play very well because I'm a bit of a dumbass. So if I have I'm sitting in I don't know, Canada or USA, and I'm looking at the world at the moment, and I'm thinking, you know what, I really want to sort of maybe get back to grassroots a little bit, and like in my case, I sort of bought a farm and raising animals, raising children, raising food. And like, and I sort of also think that you need to have a realistic plan in terms of income, and I have some money. What do I do with it? What would be my first step to fulfilling my dream, but also making it into a practical reality?
Well, it's fine, I suppose, finding an investment just in that meets your preferences, really. It's that there aren't any restrictions by the visa program as such, as far as how the money's invested. If
Okay.
you wanted to go into like say into farmland or renewable energy, anything that's good for the environment, it's very much just a personal preference rather than something that's forced
Okay.
by the government. It's more the kind of structure of the investment that that you choose a fund or selection of funds that are regulated first of all in Portugal,
Yeah.
and also, as we covered before, they're not going into real estate.
Hmm.
And the only other real restriction is that at least 60% of the investment fund is investing into Portuguese securities. But as to what type of securities, what type of companies, like I said, there aren't any restrictions.
Okay. So that kind of basically is buying shares or fractional ownership or whatever of companies. But how does that sort of affect if I wanted to just sort of invest if I've gone down to the local incubator, for example, and there's some guys doing some medical research and they have an Unipessoal or they have an LDA, can I invest in that?
You could invest into that, but in order to invest into that and get the visa, the condition of investing directly into one company is that that company creates or maintains jobs in Portugal
Mm-hmm.
as a result of your investment. So, just investing into a company wouldn't by itself get the visa, but like I say, if there are the creation or the maintenance of jobs as a result, then potentially yes, that could maybe
Okay,
work.
that's interesting. That's interesting. Sort of, there's been a kind of a little bit of the confusion in the media, and sort of what exactly has been the changes? Is it just the property that's been a big change in the last few years, or is there some other little elements?
It is literally the only change, Justin. I mean, there is the question of citizenship law changing this year. So the one of the most frequently asked questions at the moment is about the time it takes to get a European passport
Hmm.
through Portugal and the ability to apply for citizenship. But the program itself, the visa program, the criteria, the minimum stay, all these things have stayed the same now for quite some time. So yeah, I suppose I'll just clarify, the difference between residency law and
Yeah,
citizenship
I was
law,
going to ask.
uh, Justin. And residency wise, the visa application, all the visas come under the residency law, and there's no changes recently or due anytime soon around the requirements for the different types of visa under the residency law. But the potential change is to that of the citizenship laws, and like I said, the extension of the timeline of 5 years to apply for a passport, extending up to as long as 10 years. Um, and um, and yeah, this is of course a hot topic at the moment. Initially for clients that have already invested or are already in Portugal, literally, seeking the passport in the near future. They may be affected now, having to wait for that extra time to apply
Mm.
for their passport. And of course, there are people considering starting the process as well, which may be looking forward to the passport. So the only the major difference between holding a visa and become a citizen is that with the visa you have rights to reside in Portugal. You get access to the healthcare of Portugal. You get access to study in Portugal. But as you become a citizen, those rights then extend to all other European countries as well.
Because as
So,
a UK passport holder, when I first moved to Portugal, of course, we were part of the EU, so that didn't affect me at all. So I could move anywhere in Europe. I didn't have to sort of even think about that kind of thing. But now recently, I'm actually still on a residency visa, which is I can't even remember how many years. It's coming up to nearly 15 years, I think, on a residency visa. So I haven't found any massive disadvantages at the moment of being on a residency visa, but I do sort of toy with the idea of being a dual, and that's actually the other benefit, I think, because you can actually be a dual passport holder, can't you? I can keep my UK passport and I can have the additional Portuguese passport, which would obviously be like the gateway to Europe. And also, coming backwards and forwards, my Portuguese wife and child, it doesn't mean we have to be separated at the passport check-in, which is always a little bit annoying because I end up going on the back of a huge queue. Yeah, so that's another story.
Funny you should say that, actually, just because I've recently had a baby boy, Max, and
congratulations.
Very much, and he's the first Portuguese baby of the family. So
wow,
we now sneak in the fast track queue with him having a Portuguese passport.
Oh, brilliant! So he's just got straight into having because my team and Rita, they both obviously have Portuguese passports, but I'm the odd one out. Yeah, so. Yeah, but
he completely skipped the visa process and went straight for the passport. Very clever boy.
Yeah, exactly. But, he must have smart genes.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I'm still on a British passport myself, just like you. But I've been here now for about 5 years, and as long as I can improve my Portuguese skills this year, then like you, we could apply for permanent residency rights and citizenship as well after 5 years.
Yeah, and of course, having a Portuguese son as well now with a Portuguese passport, that actually sort of adds a little bit into your benefit as well in terms of application for the citizenship. They have changed the sort of the requirements a little bit on the language, have they, or not? I've sort of heard rumors that it's a little bit easier.
No, the rules have stayed the same. However, there is an additional option now compared to just taking the A2 language exam. And for those that don't like the idea of taking a test, you can do a minimum number of hours study instead without the need to take a test. So it's still 150 hours. So arguably you could probably pass the test anyway if you did that. But there's two possibilities to get that certificate.
Well, that's very interesting because that's going to benefit a lot of language schools based in Portugal teaching Portuguese. So that's kind of a quite a smart thing to do. And I also fully encourage people, if they do move to a different country, to at least, I know us English speakers, it's really, really difficult to learn other languages. That's my excuse anyway. And but I think it's so important to sort of understand a lot about the culture of Portugal and to speak to local people. If you have that barrier of language, it's always it always adds a little bit of difficulty. And I find that even if you stumble around and use a few basic words here and there and try to string a few sentences together, Portuguese people are very forgiving and want to help you along.
Well, yeah, and I noticed that just from when I moved to Spain. I mean, I was in Spain for 5 years before I came over to Portugal, and it's so the difference of welcome from the Portuguese is so obvious, and yeah, the Portuguese do learn English in the school, whereas the Spanish don't. So I tend to find the Portuguese do like the opportunity to talk in English a little bit more than the Spanish, but yeah, nonetheless, pressure is on us just to pick up the language.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a huge benefit, even if it's a few words. Bit by bit by bit, over 15 years, I'm stringing a few sentences together. But and I live in a really rural area, and many people don't speak any English around here, which is very good for me. So, yeah. But so, sort of why has Portugal historically been one of the most popular residency by investment programs in Europe?
For I suppose a few reasons. I mean, right now the answer is pretty clear. It's actually the only one left just in Europe that has a path to becoming a European citizen without the need to live in Europe. So for that reason, it works very well for clients that are not wanting to become tax resident in Europe, or maybe don't know where they want to move to just yet, or even if they are going to move, and kind of look at it as a plan B for maybe moving to Europe in the future, or maybe sending the children to study in Europe in the future. But yeah, it is. Portugal offers now the only country to offer a path to citizenship without the need to actually live in the country. The minimum capital requirements are and have been the lowest, really, of European countries that have offered similar programs in the past. The minimum donation currently is €250,000.
Okay.
The minimum investment for all investments is €500,000, but there are one or two investment providers that pay kind of an upfront fixed return that enables clients to invest less than 500,000 of their own capital,
Okay.
as low as 325,000. But if we look at the likes of the Malta program previously, that was over €1 million. The Spanish program, which closed last year, had a requirement to be in the country for at least 6 months per year as well. So yeah, Portugal remains to be the gateway to Europe, even if you're not wanting to live full time in Europe just yet.
Yeah. Okay. That's really interesting. I didn't actually know that. That could be really beneficial. It's always good to have a plan B. The sort of background I come from, it's always very important, I think, to have a plan B. Especially in this world at the moment when we really don't know what's going on. It's how to predict things is very, and and it's particularly in the markets. I mean, I'm sure you find as well. You need that sort of security. For investment, or indeed, like maybe you don't need. Maybe you need a lot of change, to for the funds to make money. That's a sort of stuff that's way above my pay grade, and I'm not really sure about. But yeah, I mean, I did play a little bit with the stock market at one point. I actually did really well, and then I just sort of freaked myself out a little bit and sold up and got out of it. I kind of felt like I was gambling a bit, rather than sort of just trusting a fund and letting that run on its own. You get
Yeah, no, that's natural, Justin, and it's important to know as well that the majority of investors are not, they're not they don't do the Golden Visa to make lots of money. The vast majority of clients just want security for the capital
Hmm.
whilst they get the permanent residency and then take the money back out. I have some clients that are more adventurous than others and do want to go for for, for big returns, and the majority, like I say, a fixed return, albeit
Okay.
a smaller return potentially is more comforting with the visa being the main reward rather than
Okay.
big profits really. But
Yeah.
everyone's different, and yeah, naturally during the process, I can introduce investors to different fund managers. There's different funds of varying risk appetite, varying returns, but ultimately, investors can choose one or a mixture in line with what their preferences are.
Yeah. And those investments are basically companies which are registered companies in Portugal. That's correct, right? To qualify for the visa.
Correct. Well, the fund has to be regulated in order
Okay.
for it to qualify for the visa. But there are also different providers of these types of funds, and investors can choose who is responsible for that capital. I'm always encouraging to work with fund managers that have a long history, that have a good reputation, of course, in the
Mhm.
industry. Over the years, I've had clients ask me about some wild and wonderful investments, just in which may qualify for a visa, but also can have a significant risk of loss
Yeah.
of capital. I had two that stick out. One client asked me about investing into a theme park once.
Yeah. Okay.
I had a client ask me about investing into a movie production in Portugal,
I
which
think I heard about that
would have
actually.
qualified for a visa, but like most, I don't know too much about movie production
Mm.
or theme parks, but I do know enough to know that if they're not successful, there's a significant risk of losing that capital. So for the main, investors are choosing something that's very diverse, well managed, and focusing on capital security rather than trying to make lots of money during the process in the main.
I just want to pick up on a point there that you said. The client can invest in a fund, and then he can take the money out once he's got the visa. So how long is the visa application form, and how does the Portuguese government sort of manage that? Because I'm sure from their point of view that they want that sort of investment staying in, that capital staying in the market in Portugal in respect to sort of trying to earn more money basically for the Portuguese economy. So if that money is then taken out, what sort of government sort of regulations are looking at this?
Well, the ideal timeline, Justin, is around about 6 years in total. The best practice for investors is to stay invested until they have permanent residency rights or citizenship, because it's only at those times when there's no further requirements to stay invested. The visa lasts for only 2 years, and you need to renew the visa at least twice before you can make those rights permanent. And in order to renew the visa, you have to show evidence that you have stayed invested. So as long as you stay invested during the renewals, once you have permanent rights, then you can come out of the investment and take the capital back out, and then you're on the path then to citizenship and spending that money however you like. Justin, there's no further requirements.
And I'm sure many people just keep it invested. If they've done pretty good over the last, not only have they got the visa as a reward, but there might also be some significant financial reward as well over 6 years.
Yeah, there can be. Although the majority of investors tend to or intend to take that capital back out. Naturally, there are tens of thousands of investment funds in the universe, but there are a relatively small selection of funds that would qualify for the visa. So some investors can stay invested and do, but for the majority, they'll look to maybe reinvest without the golden visa restrictions, or in some cases, use that capital to then buy the home, as and when they move to Portugal.
Yeah, makes sense. What sort of returns are you sort of looking at are they fixed returns on the funds, or are they variable returns, or what sort of money are we looking at?
They vary, like with any investment fund, I suppose, Justin. So ultimately the returns from any investment are driven by the appetite for risk that the investor chooses to take. Portuguese funds, on the face of them, look very similar to to American funds or UK funds, but investors can choose to be as adventurous or as cautious as they like. There are some providers, as I mentioned before, that offer a fixed return, which works out to be around about 4% per year equivalent. The top performing funds over the past 12 months have done over 20%. But naturally, it was a particularly good year for Portugal and shouldn't be expected every year. But ultimately, it just depends on the risk that our client chooses to take.
And your clients are sort of coming from what are the sort of major countries which are interested in Portugal from your perspective? And are they sort of investors primarily, or retirees, entrepreneurs, or are they indeed families? What's the sort of percentages of your sort of client metrics?
The vast majority coming from the US at the moment, Justin. So generally driven by
politics.
Dare I say politics? Yeah. I won't pass any further comment, but I think it was around November time, 2024, where we saw a bit of an influx. I don't know what happened at that time in the US, but something seemed to trigger a bit of an increment. But nonetheless, it has been Americans predominantly over recent years, but also from South Africa, also from the UK. China is a big market as well, although my Chinese is even worse than my Portuguese, so I can't say I work with too many Chinese nationals, but
I was going to
yeah,
say that
most
actually
in
because
the US.
our metrics for the audience is going crazy in China, and I was
Oh, really?
actually I'm going to delve into that a little bit more. But so they're listening in English,
Yeah.
because we're only audio. I don't have any subtitles or anything like that. So unless I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're taking the transcripts and converting them into Chinese for information. I don't know, but we have a significant audience in China, so that's something definitely to be aware of. Sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, not at all. No, we can accommodate for Chinese nationals, and we can provide documentation that's translated and things like this. It's just that my personal language skills are not too fluent, but we can assist with the applications. But otherwise, the type of client that we see drawn to the golden visa is really those that, like I said, they're not too sure of what the plan is just yet.
Mm,
All other visa types require clients to live in Portugal full time and actually become tax resident here. The golden visa is very unique. The minimum stay is only 14 days every 2 years, which is
mhm,
which is nowhere near enough to become tax resident. So, clients that are thinking of the future, a possible retirement plan maybe, a plan B if things go south or they decide to leave where they live at the moment, and it just offers a lot of flexibility not to have to make any decisions right now.
mm.
It's simply structuring the capital into an investment that gets the visa, and then later on you can decide if to move or not.
Interesting. No, I think it's very. I think it's really nicely like a modern, flexible. Like you don't want to. I have a vision that families sort of want to be a little bit more world fluid. They want to live here a little bit. They want to live there. They can travel there. With this sort of working remotely and and sort of schooling as well, sort of being a little bit more remote, the ability to sort of educate your
Mm,
kids anywhere in the world. It means that the people aren't necessarily tied down to countries, and to have that flexibility and a plan B or even a plan C. I think it's really cool. I think it's really open minded of the government, and it would be nice if other countries start to sort of think about and look at these things, because I think I am seeing. We've had a couple of guests on here. We had Boundless Life on here, which was a company who talks about education and setting up, sort of helping people sort of relocate in terms of the education, and they sort of group kids together in a school, and they have, you don't have to be fixed in one place for a certain amount of time. You can just be there for 2 or 3 weeks, and your kid joins the classes for a bit, and then you go off onto another trip somewhere else. And they have Boundless Life organizations all over the world. Um, and it seems like they're doing very well. So it seems that families are sort of looking at this sort of lifestyle where you don't have to be necessarily fixed to one particular plan or one particular country. Um, and I think,
mhm.
as you say, the golden visa, we might as well tick that off the box as an option.
Yeah, well, it's like mentioned before, just when before Brexit, when we had that freedom to just live in any European country, I think we kind of took that for granted at the time. But it does open up those doors, and it's surprising how many clients I have that have never even been to Portugal, or I'm not sure if they even want to come to Portugal, but are thinking maybe of moving to France, for example, or over to Italy. It's still, I say, it's a path to Europe rather than a path just to Portugal, which is
Yeah.
important to remember.
It's like hard to create that picture in your head of what is Portugal. Um,
Yeah, it is. So you just, I think I just think of you think of this. You think of the weather first and foremost, don't you? I mean, I think of the beaches. I think of the quite relaxed lifestyle. I mean, I have a great what's the word? Quite great balance between a very busy kind of corporate work life, but then a very relaxed social life. Where
Brilliant.
certainly down in the Algarve, it's very much a beach town compared to the likes of Lisbon and Porto. But yeah, it's now of course an influx of Americans as well, Justin. So
Yeah.
certainly over the past few years, I'm sure that will bring some difference to the culture as well.
Yeah. Are you seeing that a lot in the Algarve, or do you mean sort of the whole of Portugal? I know in Lisbon for sure, it's become a lot more busy with different nationalities moving to Portugal.
Yeah, I think across the board, but very it's like I said, by contrast to my opinion on when I lived in Spain, the Portuguese are very welcoming of both Brits and Americans and most nationalities really, but in particular English speakers due to let's say studying English at school. I think that has a knock-on effect. But yeah, it's very that's how I've got away with not speaking too much Portuguese over the past 5 years because everyone generally speaks English, which
yeah.
is really.
Well, the Algarve has always been kind of particularly cosmopolitan, and it has been, it always has been a little bit more mixed. I think if you're coming, the Alentejo is sort of gradually changing a little bit, but the Alentejo tends to be a little bit more rural, less people speak English, and then I'm guessing Lisbon now is feeling a big influx of new people and adapting. I don't really know too much about Porto, but I'm assuming Porto is similar.
Yeah.
And it's exciting, interesting times, and I'm happy to be living here. Like you say, the work-life balance is super good. There is potential to do many things here and to have a good life and to work remotely. There's a lot of really great infrastructure here in terms of roads. I mean, I don't know if you've driven around the UK recently, but it's not easy. And I go back now and I drive. I don't really care that it's on the other side of the road, but the fact that it's so busy, it's stressful.
I know. When was the last time you got stuck in a traffic jam?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially in Alentejo. I actually turn off the A2 and then you just you don't see any cars for I don't know, 20 minutes, something like that. And I literally, especially in the summer, I can turn off the A2 and I'm on the Alentejo roads and I just breathe out. I do a big sigh, go,
It's quite funny how I get stuck at a traffic light sometimes for all of 10 seconds, and I get frustrated that I've had to stop. But then you look back. I mean, I'm from Manchester originally in the UK, and the M60 ring road. It's one big traffic jam for the majority of the day. So it's one of the big plus points. Although saying that, I think one downside of living in Portugal is the tax on cars and the cost of actually owning a vehicle is much more than that in the UK, but you do enjoy it a lot more because there's less traffic and the roads are generally much better as well.
Yeah, it can be a bit complicated. I remember bringing an old military Land Rover Defender over here and trying to get that matriculated. I sort of gave up and just bought a Portuguese matriculated car. It was much easier. So what is it that you actually do? And if I was considering the Golden Visa, what would be my next step?
Well, I work as an independent consultant in Portugal, just of supporting now over 600 families with the Golden Visa, and my job ultimately is to hold my clients' hands. Really, there's a lot of things involved in the process, from applying for tax numbers, applying for a bank account in Portugal, the legal work, of course, the document collection, accompanying clients with the biometrics appointment in Portugal, things like this. But first and foremost, I provide advice on how to go about the Golden Visa process, how to work out if it's the right type of visa. Naturally, we can look at different investments available with different fund managers in Portugal. And for those that are wanting to explore a little bit more specific detail, the best thing is always to book a call. And during an initial meeting, I can give a little bit more tailored advice, and we can run through things like the legal fees and the government fees involved with the process. We can talk about which family members can be included and things like this, and what documents are required, and so on. But yeah, I'm always happy to help on that front.
Right. So, I mean, do you want to leave your telephone number? Are you going to risk leaving your telephone number on this podcast? Because you could get 7,000 phone calls.
I would, but that's for VIPs like you only, Justin. But jokes aside, no, an email would be good. Of course, you can contact Podcast Portugal as well, with and request
Okay.
a discussion. You can submit any questions as well. I'll be happy to answer any questions, Justin, and of course you can visit my private site as well, which is www.jsprive.com, which is JSPRIVE.com, and for an email, contact at jsprive.com is fine, or of course directly to yourself, Justin, with any questions.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so I think be a nice idea, because we're going to do an episode 2 in a few weeks. So any of the audience out there, if you have any specific questions or things that you've experienced going through the whole Golden Visa process, or you're about to go through the Golden Visa process, and you have some questions that you would like to ask Jason, just get in contact with me, and I'll put it into the question format that we organized before the podcast. I think that would be really cool. And if you have some sort of more private things that you want to talk about, then you can get Jason's contact details from me, or indeed the email that he just said and his website. But also, I'm going to leave those links in the show notes. So you look through, if you're watching on Spotify or if you're watching on listening on Apple Podcasts, just go through the show notes, and there will be a direct hyperlink there to sort of talk to Jason. From my perspective, I have a virus against anything to do with documentation and administration. So to have somebody that I can rely on to do this for me and navigate, that's had 600 clients already, I feel, is basically expert status. And I'd be like, okay, Jason, you can look at doing that for me. I give you this is what I want, and this is what I think I want. And I'm going to go off and enjoy some wine in a vineyard or a beach or whatever. So I don't have to stress about it. So, because Portuguese bureaucracy can be difficult, or some people say it is, because I've never had to experience it, because I've always used very good individuals that's helped me with it. So, like Jason. So, Jason, thank you so much. And I think next month's topic, we're going to discuss with Jason the Golden Visa investment options and how the program actually works. So, the sort of practical side, money, investment routes, and residency requirements. So any questions you have, or it can be any questions on today's podcast as well that you would like us to sort of cover a little bit more. That would be excellent. Jason,
thank you very much.
How was your sleepless nights with the new baby?
Yeah, well, good. I mean, I won't lie. My wife has taken the lead, and she's a lot more tired than me, but it's going well.
Yeah.
You can't. Luckily, I'm on a podcast and not a webinar, Justin, because if I was on a webinar, you would see these wrinkles below my eyes. But I'm doing okay.
It's the benefit of audio only. Brilliant. Well, you make sure you enjoy yourself, and thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to speaking with you in a few weeks for episode 2 of the special Jason Swan Golden Visa Investments in Portugal. This is Justin West from Podcast Portugal. Thank you, Jason, once again.
Thanks.
Out.
Thanks, everyone.
6 feet under the rock, I'm gone. I dig a hole and hide on my magazines. All the spots are not obscene. I just need some time, some focusing. I got the pen, I got the sheet, I got my plan, I got my screen. Someone tell me, please, there is a need to stop playing Baldur's Gate 3. 1, 2, 3, we're living on a rock, living on a rock, living on a roller coaster. 365 per year, living on around in a muffin shop. Chocolate, I need to concentrate, stop this train of thoughts, or I will be crashing on a couch. Won't have much to grouch about. Walking past another conductor makes me wanna build a fusion reactor. Starting just with the basic switch, connecting poles and energy. Mom's space, focus on geography, all the things I can learn without machine. I need some fuel, I need a monster now.